Hi, welcome back. Basic anatomy. We're going to go over the muscular system now. I'm not going to spend too much time going through the types of muscle, more the bigger groups of muscles and where they attach. We could get into the nitty gritty of it a little bit later, maybe in another video, but this this video could take a half hour or it could take 3 hours depending on how in depth we get into the muscle groups. So I don't want to spend too much time talking about it. I just want to get in and show you where the major muscle groups are. We'll start on the back. So the major posterior muscles. We're going to start with the most prominent on the back, which would be your trapezius muscles. So the trapezius muscles start at the back, basically at the base of your skull, run down to your neck, attached to the scapulas, and then run down this spine that, remember, is talking about on the scapula earlier. They're going to run down that spine until they hit the base of it, and then they're going to move across to the back just below where the rib cage sits. Then we're going to mirror that on the other side. All right. See that? It's a pretty good start. It's already starting to look like a fairly muscled individual. All right. So from there, talk about the infraspinatus and the teres major. So the infraspinatus, again, is going to attach under that ridge, and then the teres major generally sits underneath that. The latissimus dorsi is the next largest muscle here, and you're going to wrap it around from the side of the rib cage, and it's going to follow all the way down. I like how scratchy that was looking. So this one, we're going to make a little half circle here. Bring it in like that. That's a little better. So there's you'll see a bit of the lateral oblique from the front. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But then you're going to have this ridge. It might sit a little bit. Let's bring it across a little more horizontal and then down right above the tailbone. So this white area here and this white area here are all fascia and tendon. So we're not going to concern ourselves with that too much. We're just going to worry about the major muscle groups. So right here, this little bulb of a muscle that you see here is the gluteus minimus. And then the larger muscle that is going to wrap here is, of course, the gluteus maximus. Now, again, you're going to see that fascial tendon connection as it goes down onto the femur bone and attaches to the femur. And then you've got your IT band and your hip flexor that cover. Again, we'll hit the gluteus maximus, the gluteus minimus, hip flexor, and the gluteus maximus fascial connection, fascia and ligament to the femur bone. All right, now let's come back up here to the top a little bit. Now, also attached to the scapula, you're going to get your deltoid. Your deltoid is going to come across and down about a third of the way onto the humerus. And then you've got different, you've got the medial and the lateral and different heads to the deltoid muscles. But, I mean, for the most part, we're just worried about the group. Behind that, you've got your tricep. Now your tricep, there are 3 heads to your tricep. And the largest of the 3 is on the inside here. So we're going to do the same thing on this side, about a third of the way down where our connection starts. That top of that AC joint, out and down. There are multiple heads. It follows this ridge, the spine of the scapula, and across. And we'll cover them as they overlap. Again, we've got the large head to the tricep. We've got the smallest head to the tricep. And it makes that nice horseshoe shape for the back of the arm. Now, let's move down to the leg. So the hamstring is is a little bit more involved. So we're going to keep these pretty pretty basic. So you'll see the inside here, this large muscle here is the groin muscle. Now that groin muscle is interrupted by the hamstring. The hamstring's going to attach up here, and then it kind of branches off in different directions. But for the most part, it's going to wrap the interior and then split right up the middle. And then you've got the other side of it. So you got to think of it like your bicep muscle on your arm. That is your hamstring on your leg. So think your arms and your legs the same, just reversed. And the leg muscles are larger, but they're basically carry the same function. And then you'll see a bit of the front of the quadricep sitting on the outside. So groin, hamstrings, quadricep. Oops. Oh. My goodness. And then we'll have the, yeah. There we go. I got a little messy, but that's okay. Then the calf, so we're going to split this, and this again, this is tendon fascia. So the calf muscle is going to split in the middle. When you're looking at the calf muscle, they run down either side of the back of the leg. When you're looking at them, generally, like if you were to flex your calf muscle, point your toe really hard, this muscle would ball up much higher, and this one would be lower and have this kind of a tabletop flat piece to it. And then that is going to move down into the Achilles tendon, or yeah, your Achilles tendon. Which, if you've ever had Achilles problems, you know how big of a problem that is. If you break your Achilles, your calf muscles ball up in the back of your knee back here. And you've got a few other smaller muscles in the groups that we're not going to get into. Just know that there's multiple muscles, and when we go to the front, I'll show you there's a few large muscles that run across the front of the shin and go down into the ankle. So we'll do the same thing on this side. We're going to bring this down. Achilles tendon comes down and hooks to the back of the heel. Tendon that wraps across the front of the ankle. It's where we talk about getting a high ankle sprain. That's that band that goes around the ankle here of fascia gets split, and that's what causes that. The arm, so the upper or the lower arm can get a little tricky because of the amount of muscles that are moving around there. I'm going to pull up a reference here. Just so I can keep straight the direction that they're moving. All right, so most of them are going to travel straight down the arm. But there are some that do move across and have other connections. There's a couple up here that cause the arm to twist when they're flexed. And then underneath those, you're going to get some more of the longer directional muscles. So generally they're coming from the interior of the elbow down, and from the exterior of the elbow across. And then you have some that are coming down behind those. That might be sitting a little bit low. That are allowing the radius and the ulna to move back and forth across each other. You're not really going to see much of the bicep from behind. So we're just going to move on. There are quite a few muscles moving across the palm. But again, those generally, we draw those as an entire unit and not so much as a singular instance, so we're not going to worry about those too much. You'll see some of those from the back. That webbing piece, there's a large muscle that sits here. One that sits here wraps this way. Then it's a lot of tendons and small muscles that line the fingers. As far as the head goes, you've got a small muscle group right at the base of your skull on either side, and then the muscles that attach your jaw. Then your ears would be sitting on top of that. So we're going to move over to the side view, just so we can keep this moving. So bring up that reference so that I'm making sure that my connections are working the way they're supposed to. So we're going to start over here doing one of the muscles that I forgot to do on the back here would connect here and move down. That is your sternal mastoid. So the reason I remember that is because now I've got to put it here. It attaches to the front of your clavicle and then to the base of your skull. Your trapezius, like we said, are going to wrap back. So these are your trapezius muscles all through here. The you've got see, your deltoid attaches to the AC joint up here, and to your clavicle and to the ridge of your scapula, and it would sit in a shape like that, and there'd be 3 heads to it. So your deltoid. So your pectoral muscles, we talked about these a little bit before. In the male, they act like a fan. So, and there's multiple layers to them. So the underlying layers, you're going to get them, they're going to come up and they're going to attach to not only the scapula at the this little ridge that sits here. They attach there. You're going to get some that attach to the collarbone at the AC joint, and then the upper layers are going to attach to the head of the humerus sits here and moves down. And right below that ball is where you're going to get some of the attachments for the upper pectoral muscles. And then you get this little space in here where there's not really much of anything. But since the deltoid sits on top, you don't really see that connection as much, because you're going to have the bicep coming down, the tricep, and all that. So we're not going to worry about that too much. We're going to keep, I'm not going to draw any more of the arm from the side, just because it's going to interrupt what we've got going on here, and we need to worry about some of these other muscle groups, like the lat, for example. So your lat is going to attach this iliac crest. So it's going to sit and attach to that. Now, so the rib cage, the ribs are moving across this way. And there's going to be muscles attached to those that are very thin muscles attached to those. But what you're going to see is the lat muscle is going to attach to those. So you've got the muscle over the rib, the lat attachment. The muscle over the rib, as it comes up, you're going to get that lat attachment. Muscle over the rib, that lat attachment. And it's going to work its way all the way down to the bottom. Now, sitting over top of the very top of the rib cage, and then working its way down to the pubic bone, is you have abdominis erectus, your abdominal muscles, and your lateral oblique. So we're going to connect, because the way that the lat comes down, it really does, you're going to have these overlying each other. So you've got your lat, and then you've got the way that the lat comes across and in the back. And you've got the lateral oblique, and then you've got those abdominis erectus muscles sitting on top of those. Then you'll have your, let's see, your IT band is working from the front across to about mid. Then you've got your quadricep. Your hip flexor is up in here too as well. You've got, this is cartilage and fascia here. Then you have your gluteus minimus and the gluteus maximus. And then your bigger muscles here are the hamstrings. Now when we get down here into the knee, again we've got a lot of fascia and tendons moving over the knee and wrapping the back and the base of these muscles. And then you're going to have your calf muscles run down into the Achilles tendon. Now depending on how you're standing and how you're flexing your foot is how high that muscle is actually going to appear to sit before it drops into that tendon. And then, of course, you've got the muscles that are coming down into your ankle, and then you've got a pretty large muscle that wraps the front of your shin. If you flex your foot really hard, you can see this one pretty well. And then there are a lot of tendons that are moving across your ankle. And then you've got lots of smaller muscles that are moving across. Then you don't have a whole lot in your toes. Once you get up into the face, so you've got a round muscle, circular muscle that sits here, but then you've got the muscles that control your mouth movement all moving towards your jaw. And your eyelids. This is all a large muscle group, which we're really, I'm not really going into a lot of what these are called, these smaller ones, because they really don't matter for what we're doing today. And I don't want to make this video too long, but I'm just giving you an indication of where they are. Muscle actually is too small. All right, now let's move on to the front. So again, we're going to have the sternal mastoids attaching to the clavicle. You're going to have your trapezius attaching to your clavicle and to your scapula. You have these circular muscles for the opening of your mouth. all of the supporting musculature that is controlling your mouth movement, eyelids, muscles. Ears would be sitting in here. Got the muscles that are controlling your brow ridge. And then muscles that line your nose and also connect through to your mouth. Now we'll hit the pectoral a little bit more here. So you're going to have a cartilage or fascia in between the muscles. There's always a space here until these muscles get really developed and they start to bulge over. Then you get this line here. But for the most part, on somebody that doesn't work out all the time, you're going to have this bony region here. And then again, you've got multiple layers to the pectoral muscle as it works its way across, but it's going to connect to underneath the head of that humerus muscle and to the clavicle. The underlying muscles are going to hit the back of the scapula and that AC joint. And that's what leaves this space here that you see. Then you've got some supporting muscles in the neck, and that's going to leave that space there. Your sternal notch, because this is your trachea on the man. You have the Adam's apple up here. So again, we're going to bring that to just under Now, we're going to draw over this a little bit because also here and attaching here is where you're going to get your deltoid. Front head of your deltoid actually covers the connection of the pectoral muscle. Now, if you remember last time when I talked about the difference between the male and the female and the latissimus dorsi as it comes down and follows those ribs, then you get that lateral oblique that's going to connect to those bones. Well, we're going to show you how that works here now. It's a little easier to see from the front, so I kind of saved that till we get here. So you have the sternum as it comes down, and again we said there's the ribs move in this direction. So you see in comic books a lot, let me do it for you that way, they're going to give you almost this plate here. What they're really drawing there is the base of the sternum, and they're following that rib up, and then you're going to have that connection to the lat. And then you've got another rib connection that comes down. It's a muscle that sits over the rib. And then you've got another lat connection. And a rib, and a lat, and a rib, and a lat. So you're going to mirror that coming through the other side. A lat, and a rib, and a lat, and a rib. Bring that one down just a little bit further. Separating that, we're going to split that right down the middle. and we're going to bring in abdominis erectus. So this first muscle here, so the sternum is actually finishing up here. It might finish a little bit lower, but this plate that they generally draw is really the top two abdominal muscles. And then you've got your next abdominal muscles. Two more, which make up your abdominis erectus. It's 2, 4, 6. Then you have your navel, where your umbilical cord was. And then you've got the base of your abdominal wall that connects to the top of the pubis bone. And then where these finish coming across, you've got that lateral oblique muscle that's wrapping like this from the back. On top of that, one connecting to is rolling through past the tip of the humerus bone to the scapula and up to the clavicle and to the humerus bone itself. You have your bicep. So your bicep tendon sits like that, and then you've got the actual bicep muscles. I say muscles because plural, because there are two, bi meaning two. So there's multiple heads to that bicep. And then you're going to slightly see that shortest head of the tricep muscle. And on the interior, you'll see the largest head of the tricep muscle coming down. We've got a fascial tendons. And again, all these smaller muscles that are wrapping the wrist, that allow you to rotate the arm. Your bicep. Tricep. Tricep. So this being the palm, got some fascia moving across here. Large muscle, tendons moving up through, and then the linking muscles for the fingers, which are much smaller, much too small to get into on this drawing. But again, you'll see it here. Large muscle that sits here. There's a large muscle that sits there. And then you've got, again, your connecting muscles. Fascial band. Most people get carpal tunnel. The connecting muscles that we're not going to get into just right now. So one of the most important muscles here is one of the reasons that I said that we don't want to draw these bones really straight. So this point on the hip bones, from here down to the interior of the leg, there's a muscle that wraps, that separates the groin from the quadricep. So that's where that dip comes from, because you've got your hip flexors in here. You've got your groin muscle that's running in here, and then you've got your quadricep that runs out there. So from the top of the kneecap, fascial connection, got quadricep muscles. This is your gluteus minimus, you can see here. Probably bring that out a little bit further and this in a little bit further, just for symmetry's sake. Like I said before, the kneecap is covered with the patella tendon. You've got your patella tendon, you've got your anterior cruciate ligament, you've got your meniscus on either side, and then you've got your PCL on the back of your knee. So there's a large muscle running across the front of your shin, which if you flex your foot really hard, you can see this one. It's actually a pretty cool muscle. You'll see it a lot on people that do a lot of running or did a lot of gymnastics. So you can see the back side of that calf muscle. And then you've got, like I said, there's these bands of fascia that actually sit and run across. So if you ever had a high ankle sprain, that means these little bands of fascia that run across here, you've torn them. So again, connectors, the pad of your foot, the arch, and then the heel. Rinse and repeat. So from this bone to the interior, bring it up a little higher. Bring it out a little bit more. Top of the kneecap. That lead muscle in. Quadricep. You got your groin muscles moving through, you've got your hip flexor, you've got your gluteus minimus. IT band in your quadricep. You've got this large muscle that runs across your shin. You've got calf. And then several muscles that are coming across from the back. Connection muscles, toes, muscles for the pad of the foot. All right, now you can make some adjustments here just to bring things a little bit in to where they need to be. So you see you've got that nice V shape, hipster, the bony landmarks, that tip of that bone where that muscle connects. You've got sternal notch, AC joint, sternum, pelvic bone, kneecap, and then the heel where the Achilles tendon runs up. On the side, you're going to see this tip of this kneecap quite prominently. You'll see the side where these bones all come together, the tibia and the fibula. So you get a little knob there. That AC joint. So there we go. There's a quick overlay of the muscular system and what you should be looking for when you're drawing it. All right, I'll see you next when we put flesh on top.